In the last movie, we created links inside our navigation menu that would send values to the URL string, the GET request. Now what we need to do is pull those values down so that we can work with them. So let's go up to the top of our page, right below functions and right before headers, and let's capture those values. So let's do PHP. If you remember how we did this when we were working with links and get values, we said that it was always a good idea to check and make sure that the value was there first. So we're going to say if is set. So if the value has been set, then we're going to grab it. And the value is stored in the super global get, and it's going to be called subj if it exists. And if it exists, then we're going to set a variable. We'll go ahead and call our variable subj for now. And we'll set it equal to that super global. Now, if they clicked on a page link, we could do the same thing with another if statement. But the fact is that it's either going to be one or the other. Either they will have just clicked on a subject or they'll have just clicked on a page. So we can use our else if instead. Once again, we'll want to check and see if it is set. We'll check the super global get to see if something called page has been sent. And if so, then we'll set page equal to super global get, and once again, page with a semicolon at the end. Page is what I was using here. I'm also using it later on down here as a variable when I'm doing my loop. So that concerns me a little bit. They probably won't interact, but I just want to be sure. So I'm going to go ahead and call this SEL page for the selected page and the selected subject. And that'll just remind me that this is the one that's been selected. If I ever see page, I'll instantly know what it's talking about and how it's different from the page that's being printed in the navigation. So the quickest way to test whether or not that's working is for us now to drop down to our content area. And instead of just putting static content area here, let's actually have it output something that indicates the value of those variables. I'll put in a PHP tag and I'll use echo, and we'll just echo back the value of SEL subj for the subject. And then we'll put in a BR tag at the end. And then I'll do the same thing with the selected page. If you think back to when we first talked about variables, you can think about what's actually going to happen here. There's going to be a problem. And the problem is that we're echoing values that may not exist. We went ahead and said, if this is set, then set this value. But what if this is not set? Then selected subject never gets set. So if we're going to use that value, we have to either set some default values up here for it, or we have to make some conditions. We have to account for it in our if-then statements. I'm going to go with the second approach. And so I'm going to say that the selected page is going to be equal to nothing. And I'll do the same thing for subject. If we haven't gotten anything back, I'll say that the subject is equal to nothing. And then in the case that neither one has been selected, when we first come to this page, we'll need a final else statement. And that's going to have to say both of these, that the subject is equal to nothing and the page is equal to nothing. So now, no matter what the state of the application, whether we have a subject clicked on or a page clicked on or nothing has been clicked on, we have values for those variables, and we'll be able to output them down here in our content area. Let's go ahead and load that up and just see if we've got this much working before we go any further. Switch back to Firefox. Let's click on our history link. I got 1 back. If I click on About Widget Corp, I got 1 back, but it's in a different place because it's the subject. Products should give me 2. This gives me 3. That gives me 3 as a subject. You can see the difference between where they move. So it is working now. It's pulling down those variables and it's working. This kind of incremental testing as you develop is key. Make sure that one part works before you start adding other layers on top of it that are just going to complicate it. Just switch back to your browser, test it, and then go back and do more. Now, I realize that having the numbers 1, 2, and 3 displaying the content area isn't very sexy. But we're going to worry about the content area in the next chapter. Right now, we're really focused on making this navigation work. And there's one more feature that I want to add to it, and that's that I wish that the navigation area could show which item was selected. So we're going to handle that before we move on.